Well, right now for a tech talk, we have on how to bring AI to the top table in Asia, Richard Jones, a VP APAC, Dataiku Singapore. Well, Richard spent 20 plus years in vendors and customers, starting in technical delivery capacity and moving into sales 10 plus years ago. He enjoys helping companies realize the value of data and its potential. He's led and scaled multiple companies across the APAC. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for joining us today and being a part of this incredible World AI Show. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Bhavana. Really glad to be here, everyone. So a little bit about myself. Yes, I have been here 20 years in Asia Pacific, British by birth, Australian by choice, and Singaporean for tax. So some of the things I love doing, as Bhavana explained, I'm really passionate about the challenges that disruption brings to an organization, and the opportunity of bringing in change. I love trekking and golf and deep sea fishing, and spending a lot of time with man's best friend. So who are Dataiku? I'll just introduce us as an organization. We've been around for about 7 or 8 years now. We're a global team of about 450, continuing to scale. We really believe we are leading the way in human-centered AI and fostering AI for good with our Ikigai program. We just went through Series D, raised 100 million with Stripes and Tiger Global. We're in the Forrester Leaders Quadrant, we're in the Gartner's Leaders Quadrant, and we're on a mission to try and democratize AI across the enterprise. So what I'll cover today is setting a bit of the scene of AI. Then more specifically, we had a survey done with IDC very recently across Asia Pacific, and I want to share the trends and the findings of exactly what that report provided. We're then going to talk a little bit about the AI maturity, and then some key takeaways. I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen and it's at full lens.
Let me help you with that. Yes, Richard. Perfect. Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye now. Great. So in a strange virtual conference environment, normally I would be putting my hand up saying, with a show of hands, who knows what this is? But unfortunately, I'm going to have to assume that I can see a show of hands who may know what this is. This is the Event Horizon Telescope output. This is actually M87. M87 is Messier 87. Messier 87 was an image that was generated by the Event Horizon Telescope. It generated 4 petabytes of data over 4 days. And this was collected all the way through a bunch of processes and a bunch of protocols. And this image is a really important milestone in AI. The ability for data scientists to collude and work together with researchers who specialize in astrophysics to generate this image. What's more interesting for me was this is actually bigger than the sun and weighs over 5 times the amount of the sun. This is an interesting scenario of how AI is being used in different contexts. There was a very recent AI discovery. AI for the first time has identified an antibiotic. And this is, again, a use case in a healthcare scenario, but it's 100% AI-driven antibiotic. Computational photography. This brings it a little bit at home to us as the human race. So Google is able to use computational photography. You know, they talk about the art of a photographer is the one with the camera in the hand. Everyone has a mobile phone generally. They don't have a $10,000 SLR camera. But the mobile phone today is able to take photography in all sorts of different ways and capabilities. The latest Google photography capabilities are able to identify imagery in night and apply the best computational colors to enhance the imagery. Now, these are all wonderful use cases, and they're kind of advanced and far-fetched use cases that may not be the common average that everybody knows. Now, the reality of what we all tend to see when we go into enterprises is a little bit more like this. We still have challenges of getting data in the right format, in the right place, and trusting the number. And good old classic Dilbert always represents something in the fantastic human way. And this is not something that is unusual. You know, perhaps you've misconceived the complexity of the real world. Well, let's have a look a little bit about what the real world can look like. And here's where it can be seen as a very challenging business challenge identified decision to look at. Because the reality is we live in a complex world in the enterprise. We have many applications, we have many systems, and we have a smorgasbord of technological potential choices to make. And this slide is trying to depict a wonderful way that business can ask their IT counterparts, where am I today? You know, what orchestrator precinct am I in? What data swamp cleaning am I in? What real-time island are we looking at? And with all these sorts of technologies, it makes it more and more complex to make a decision. But decisions can be made. And I took note, and I'm going to use this quote because I really think it is a phenomenal quote from our previous panel. The data is not the new oil, but it needs to be like clean water. Now, a survey showed that 88% of companies obtain very little value from their data. But companies that do, and this is what makes it real, experience a 30% increase in EBITDA. Or a 3 times return on their equity. And this is the real key thing we need to focus around. It's why do we need to look at AI, and how do we manage the data that we have, which needs to be our clean drinking water. And so when we look at this, if we look at the lens of what C-suite believe, and this is from a recent Accenture survey, 84% of C-suite are believing AI is going to be a differentiation. And if you look at that as an agenda and an agenda topic, this means there is major initiatives that are being embarked upon. But 3 out of 4 C-suites believe they don't have the ability to scale artificial intelligence. And if you look at what Gartner is saying, they believe 80% of AI projects will remain an alchemy, run by wizards whose talents are not able to scale. And I think that resonated from our previous panel as well. And what I hope to share over the coming 5 to 10 minutes is a little bit about what Asia Pacific actually resonates with in terms of the survey that we conducted. But the good news is it's not impossible. We have some 300 plus customers across the globe that have been successful in scaling AI. And I thought I'd just bring one here to bear the fruits. GE Aviation started embarking upon their journey about 5 years ago. And they set a single mission, which was to democratize AI, but more importantly, to understand that they're never going to be able to hire enough data professionals to meet the demands of the enterprise. But they've been super successful, and one of the key pillars and tenets of that was focusing on the talent. And I think we'll see this as I go into the research study. But they trained thousands and thousands and thousands of people across their enterprise, and now they have some 4,000 people plus on the Dataiku platform, and they're leveraging their data assets to the maximum. One of the things that I think is the most important, interesting element is they're rolling data models into their production environment in less than 2 minutes. And for us, this is what we call achieving enterprise AI. But let's get real about where we sit across Asia Pacific. So the study was conducted over 700 plus C-suite leaders across the whole of Asia Pacific. And there were 5 main pillars that foundationalized in summary of what people were seeing AI was leveraging the potential for them. And it's to spur innovation, to drive risk management, to improve business agility, to enhance customer satisfaction, and to increase productivity. And what's more interesting to see here is the clusters of the different geographical countries and how they levitated to the different particular lenses of where they're seeing AI going to be leveraged. And what's most interesting is to increase productivity has the majority of the countries across the population. And so this is some interesting lens that we should focus around, in that the foundation of what we're saying here is fundamental business and the needs to drive more efficient and effective use of our talents, of our processes across the enterprise. And this is foundational 101 business driven outcome requirement from the top lens down. So how does this manifest itself? And I think this also echoes exactly what we heard in the previous panel, that many enterprises are still experimenting, and that they haven't yet yielded the likes of what GE Aviation have been able to yield, and getting their organizational discipline to have AI as a foundational part of the DNA. So the 5 pillars that we categorized growth across the region from these 700 enterprises we surveyed was simply experimenting, slowly multiplying, repeatedly executing, centrally coordinating, and consistently disrupting. And I think what's key to note is on one end of the spectrum, we have some 30% of organizations in what is seen to be some of the most maturing sectors in the market, which is FSI, but they're still simply experimenting. But the highest percentage of verticals that said they're constantly disrupting is actually healthcare and life sciences. And to some degree that echoes, you know, the fact that we can see that there are new antibiotics that are being generated 100% from an AI data model. And so this kind of lends itself again to see what we are seeing across the global trend as well. Now, what's more interesting is the 3 key pillars that we focus around across this survey. And it's not dissimilar to something which is an age-old lens. But when you look at it from AI, it's about the data, it's about the people, and it's about the technology. And what was heartening to hear from our previous panel was a key theme that talks about platforms. And that is no different in terms of what we saw from the survey as well. As we move across these pillars of data, people, and technology, we'll see exactly the tenets of what that looks like. And so if we look at data, and we categorize the data element with 5 key tenets, really, which is about data acquisition, the profiling of data projects, data definition and lineage, data quality, and then how you prepare your data. And I think if we look across the spectrum of this, what this is telling us is that most organizations still today are challenged to define the data they need to create AI success. What was a key outcome was that 59% of manufacturing organizations believe they are ready to drive the outcome of AI across the enterprise to the next level of maturity. If we look at the pillar of people, This resonated quite heavily from what the previous panel was talking about. The AI skilled staff are distributed and uncoordinated, and that 24% of organizations have a small pillar of the right skill to be able to apply the abilities of technology across the enterprise. And what we found was retail is the lowest percentage of having managed and coordinated AI skills and capabilities to take the advancement of technology to the enterprise. If we look at the key pillar of technology, just and this is what is really interesting, just some 23% across Asia Pacific have been able to get beyond the experimental mode and get models into production. Now, what this tells me is that AI provides significant opportunity across the Asia Pacific landscape. The fact that we only have some 23% of enterprises being able to maximize the value of putting models in production means there is so much opportunity for us ahead of us across the landscape. A key interesting piece here is the insurance industry came out as the lowest industry of industries being able to operationalize models into production. And I dare say that also lends itself with a critical risk driven industry that shows how much that they have to rely on the risk factor of putting things into an AI machine driven enterprise. And this echoes some of the key pillars of our previous panel about, ethical AI and the needs to be able to explain AI across the enterprise. When you put these three together across the spectrum of disruption, what we can see resoundingly clear is that the people-related issues, regardless of where the organizations sit across the whole of Asia Pacific, is resoundingly a key pillar and a key tenet. And so I think the key takeaway here is we need to be able to address the technological landscape of that complexity by bringing in platforms that simplify the engagement to data and enable organizations to maximize the productionization. And we certainly believe at Dataiku that's a key value that we are bringing to our organizations that partner with us. Now, when we look at it from a Dataiku lens, we look at it from two spectrums. One is business value, and the second is time to explore the business value. And we categorize this as 5 E's to get to full enterprise AI. The explore resonates with the 50% of companies across Asia Pacific from the survey. It's basically you're in the exploration phase and you're really trying to understand what it means. The experiment is taking it beyond just understanding to key projects, putting things into production, building your first pilots and driving awareness. The establishment phase is moving across the enterprise to lay that foundation to scale. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next coming slides as well. And then the expand is accelerating across the enterprise. And if we look at the spectrum here, it ranges from 0 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, and transforming you can get there at 2+ years as well. And the embedded means what we speak about, like the GE Aviation, where every 2 minutes they're updating models across hundreds of different business processes across all of their business units. And so when we look at this, we then combine it against an organizational framework. And the organizational framework gives us a way of building our organizational design. And I know we're relatively short of time, so I'm going to jump through this quite quickly. But the key things you need to consider are your strategy, your budget, your change program, understanding the techniques. You need to look at how you acquire your data, the the quality of your data, the access to that data, the security management framework, and how you govern it and how you catalog it. You need to make sure you understand what your storage and compute framework is, how your design patterns and deployment patterns, how your monitoring patterns, how your output and your core development is. You need to think about how you're going to democratize. So it's all about your talent and vision, how you're going to make it autonomous, how you're going to enable the organization, how you're going to support the organization. You need to ensure you build your roles and responsibility in your documentation. You need to understand your pipeline and projects management and how you accelerate that portfolio of AI engagement to the enterprise. You need to make sure you absolutely are responsible with the way you use AI. You need to build in the resilience and the risk management, and you need to understand your overall AI stack for the overall enterprise. And with this, you want to put in place the ideation framework. You want to put in place the asset classification and capitalization, the value measurement, and then ultimately understand the reliance on AI. Those things build the full Monty. When you put that across the scale of the 5 E's, you're able to then to start to build an enterprise organizational framework, which should maximize the benefit of a platform in the enterprise. Key takeaways that I really think are pertinent for everyone to take from today. You want to leverage your talents to go from tens of projects to thousands of projects like the GEs of the world. You need to enable people to engage into AI in the way they are able to maximize their talent, from no code to low code to high code. And this is what a core enterprise AI platform needs to be able to bring to the business. It means you need to augment all your business processes. You want to benefit all your employees. And ultimately, you want to get to a place where you're getting thousands and thousands of models to the enterprise to build business value. Be bold, be practical, be doing AI. And I know I'm out of time, but thank you very much. I really hope that was valuable for everyone. And we'll be around all day and certainly come and see the Dataiku team to learn how we can drive you across the enterprise and mature your AI initiatives.
Thank you so much, Richard, for joining us. And it was great to have you on the World AI Show. And thank you for presenting. And definitely all the attendees are going to be coming to your booth in just about a few minutes, because we're going to be breaking in just now for the networking break. Thank you once again, Richard.
Thank you, Bhavana. Bye now.